I literally don't even want to ask the next question. The next question that was asked at the unfiltered ICSC Center Build panel event that Dr. Charlie was at simply got into this controversial question. Is employee loyalty, our long-term employees, a drawback, or is there a significant benefit? I don't even like asking that, but that was one of the topics. We're going to cover that in this episode. Welcome to the PioneerCast. I'm Dwayne Abels, founder and president of Pioneer IQ. I hope over the course of the next 10 to 15 minutes, you're able to pick something up that helps you better understand how to engage your leaders and scale and build your business. It is certainly not an easy conversation to jump into these 4 topics that were asked on a panel that Dr. Charlie was a part of over the course of the last, week or two. Was it last week?
Last week.
Mm-hmm. So you were at ICSC Center Build. Again, it's a conference I haven't been invited to, and just in case any of you are listening, I'd love to go, even just as a participant. But I'm really intrigued. Like, we just covered the first question. Now we're jumping into, is long-term employee loyalty a benefit or a drawback? Like, set the tone for us here. Help us understand, what was it like when they threw this question out?
Yeah. So again, this was like a throwing match on a gasoline. It's really lit a blaze on the stage. And, one of the panelists said, I wouldn't dream of working for an organization for 20 years or more. Wouldn't dream of it. And then one of the panelists has worked with the same company for 41 years, started there as an intern and bought the company, and now is president and CEO.
Wow.
So he had a different take, but I loved having those ideas on the stage. And then to his point, he had several employees, 15, 20, 25-year people that are loyal to the organization and what they're doing. So the question is, why don't people want to stay at an organization, and why do they? And that is really great, because if you have an organization that is nurturing and growing leaders and employees, and they want to spend their career, they're spending their career for a legitimate reason there, right? There's no reason to leave. I mean, and you and I have talked about this before. Man, I work someplace where I'm loved, cared, respected, appreciated. I'm motivated. I'm trained. There's upward mobility. Yeah, I'm looking for another job, Dwayne, because I'm just tired of that. You're never going to hear that, right? You're never going to hear that. So it's really, I think you need a mixture, of course, because, and he talked a lot about it. His name was Mike. He talked a lot about succession planning. I'm not going to be here forever. So I'm putting things in place so that we can perpetuate this culture that's working, right? And then, so we need fresh ideas, fresh perspectives, new young people coming in with these ideas. Why are we doing it that way? Well, I don't know. Okay, that's not a good answer. Let's figure this out. But we also need the people with the tribal knowledge, the industry knowledge, the experience, just the wherewithal to say, hey, we're not going in this direction, and here's why, and it can explain the history so that it's not a mystery to this young person. Says, oh, that makes sense now that I know the history. But without that explanation, without that knowledge transfer, then we've got this employee saying, oh, we're not forward thinking, we should do this or that. So you finding that unique blend that works for your organization is best, right? But I don't think we want to be totally young and hungry, and we don't want to be totally, really experienced and maybe not as quick on our feet, right, as nimble as we need to be. So you need that mixture. But there are benefits on both sides of the fence.
I think the tug of war is actually what creates a healthy culture, So I want to ask you a question. I've seen a couple of things on this topic over the last 24 years, and we're working with all these AEC firms and all these cultures. And specifically, like the last 5 years, what I've noticed is that a lot of the people who are the more mature, they've been in the business, and they maybe have been there a long time, or they've been in our industry for a really long time, I don't think that they actually understand that the younger people, the newer people to our industry, or the newer people in the firm, they actually really want to spend time with, and they want to be mentored and helped by the older, more mature, more experienced people. I don't actually think that they understand that. And I also don't think that younger group is communicating that very well either. And we've noticed that a few times. Was that ever brought up or discussed, or what's your view on that?
That's a great point. And so I'm a baby boomer, and And I think baby boomers, we really didn't have mentors, right? And so because we didn't have mentors, we struggled to be mentors.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but when you bring it to our attention, oh, yeah, I'd love to work with this young person. Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of bringing awareness to both sides that, hey, you know, you've got a lot of knowledge, Dwayne. You've been here for 30 years, and Joe over there could really use your insight. But if you approach Joe, I think he'd be open to it. But if you don't approach Joe, then Joe's thinking you're just a boomer and you don't really want to talk with him because he's Gen Z and he's young and all. You know, you have all these preconceived notions.
Yeah.
So then the two sides don't talk, and that knowledge transfer doesn't happen. So I think it's really important for organizations to facilitate that discussion and create that opportunity for the two sides to come together. And it's going to benefit both sides because young people energize older people and vice versa. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. So Dan Benton, one of our other market leaders here, for those of you who don't know Dan, he's been here for 7 or 8 months. But he did a really powerful presentation last month, with one of his clients, headquartered in Wichita. And he really focused on 5 mindsets that prevent personal and organizational growth. And as you've been talking to me about the discussion around this particular question, I've really kind of boiled it down to, from what I've seen in my opinion, is a mindset, right? And if you're an executive, a manager, or if you choose to be a leader in the company with or without authority, I think a key to prevent people from getting stale or not being valued or providing value is not charging forward with a growth mindset. That growth mindset is so critical because you could be 110 years old and have a growth mindset, and you're actually going to be a gas pedal pushing, even if you're not the technical expert on it. Because you have a growth mindset, everyone knows that you want the best option, the best solution, not the one that's always worked and not tested. You know what I mean? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's a great point. Mindset is so huge. And the great thing about mindset is even if you don't have a growth mindset, it can be trained. It can be learned, right? Totally. Because it wasn't something that I even was on my radar years ago, then understanding what that is and what that looks like. And then when you start experiencing the growth, it gets very exciting. Yeah. So I think that's something that if organizations, if that's not a part of their core values, is definitely something they can, incorporate into the greater good of their clients, their employees, and their communities they serve. Yeah.
This is a subject that gets under my skin a little bit, just because, man, if you're in an organization and you're still getting a paycheck and you're still there, you've still been chosen, right? And I really want people to understand the value of them being chosen and them contributing. But on the other side of the coin, like the 2 most influential men in my life the last 5 years are 2 of very influential men, have been in their 80s. Dr. Tom Hill, who I know has been instrumental in your life as well, he's 80-something, right? Right, and he's got more energy, and I was telling you, he's sharper than I am, right? But he's in his 80s, instrumental with me. And also Ken Blanchard, he's also in his 80s. And it really isn't about age. I think it really boils down to mindset and people valuing what everyone in the business brings in.
So true. Yeah, I remember my first conversation with Tom Hill. I think he was 80 years old at the time. And I remember him looking at me, and I was sitting close because I couldn't believe he was 80 years old because of how fast he was walking and moving and how he shook my hand, and I was just really looking at him. And but when he told me how much he read, I was shocked. Yeah, that he had that kind of growth at 80 years old. He was still reading 2 or 3 books a day, not a week, not a month. At that time, I wasn't even reading 2 or 3 books a month. He was reading 2 or 3 a day. I'm not there. Yeah. Now I'm 3, 4 a week guy. I feel good about that, but 2 or 3, that's not in my lifetime. Right. A day. But that growth mindset, to your point, he was wanting and eager and hungry to learn
and help you learn.
Yeah. He's like, hey man, there's over 1 million books a year published in this country. Yeah. You know that? I was like, no, but I do now. Yeah. And he's like, see how far I'm getting behind? Yeah. That's what he was saying.
Good point. Well, I appreciate you bringing this topic to us and us being able to talk through it. It really is a conversation that's not had very often. But, you know, in our boot camps, like in 2023, we did several boot camps, and we had a lot of superintendents and project managers that came in from the field that literally were in their upper 50s or early 60s. And almost every one of them, you were there, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say like 80% of those guys and gals who came in, mainly they were guys, in the boot camp connected with something that they saw as a significant need that they felt like only they could serve on their team. And it really boiled down to, man, I've been there, done that, and I could help so-and-so, and I can build so-and-so, and I could, you know what I mean? And I love that. We need more of that in our space. But number one, if this is something that you're struggling with in your company or culture, I'm going back to one of our guiding principles and something Dr. Charlie has really helped us understand the last 4 or 5 years of Pioneer IQ. Dadgummit, if you just freaking love your people and they in turn love everybody else, as soft and as easy as that sounds, that ultimately kind of helps take care of the fears of not being accepted and not feeling like they're contributing and becoming irrelevant. So, hey, thanks for that, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, coming to you next on episode 3 of this particular podcast. Again, another controversial piece. Should organizations take a stance on cultural issues? I don't even know if we would provide that information in a podcast. We'll see if I can conjure up enough courage to get it done. Hey, thanks again, Charlie.
You betcha. Thank you.